So one important thing of many languages is a case system. This is especially for Arabic, Latin, Greek, German. Um, English used to have a case system, but then it dropped over time so that we only have case primarily with our pronouns. So what is case? Case is when you have a single word, and depending on its role in the sentence, that word will change in some way, shape, or form. So we see this mostly in pronouns, as I mentioned. For instance, let me give you a sentence and tell me what's wrong with it. Him hit I. There are two errors there. Him hit I. What should this sentence be? He hit me. This is proper. Why? The first one, him hit I, there's a mix of case. He and him are actually the same word. They're the exact same word, except we put this word in different grammatical places, and so it changes. So I could say, I hit he. Do I say he? No. I hit him. So if we look, in both of these cases, the he has changed. He, him. Or I could say, here's another example. I saw his house. Okay, so we have his here. His is also another case. So this is the same exact word. He, his, him. It's the same word, but it has different roles here in the sentences, and so it changes how it looks. So what are those roles? He hit me, he is the subject. I hit him, him is the direct object. I saw his house, his is an adjective. It's showing possession. So these actually correspond to the three cases. So let's look. We have who is the nominative case. So the nominative case is when you have a subject or a predicate nominative. So he hit me, right? Now, this sounds strange to us sometimes, but this is grammatically correct. I is he. I is he. Or the cat is he. We don't say the cat is him. It's supposed to be the cat is he, because this is the nominative case. A nominative case, okay? It's subjects and predicate nominatives. So he is going to be the same for all of these. Whose is a possessive case. So possessive case. I saw his house. His house. This is the possessive case. Objective case, used for objects of verbs or prepositions. He hit me. I hit him. I hit him. That is the objective case. So those are objects of verbs or prepositions. He gave him, indirect object. He gave him a coin. So even the indirect object, him is going to be, he's going to turn into him. Okay. He ran under, we have an object of a preposition. He ran under, is it he or him? Under he? No, under him, because it's the objective case, objective case. So all the hims are in the objective case. All the he's are in the nominative case. The his, that is the possessive case. So those are just for normal subject pronouns. Those we know, it's very clear. For the relative pronouns, okay, they also have the same situation, for who at least. So who, whose, and whom are three cases of the same word. Who is the nominative case? So if I say, who did it? I can't say whose did it, and I can't say whom did it, right? Who did it? Or If I said, I saw whose house? I saw whose house? The whose is modifying house. What about that's the possessive case. What about the objective case? Whom, right? I saw whom? I saw whom? Or you saw whom? He saw whom? You don't say he saw who. You say he saw whom. You saw whom. These are in the objective case. Okay, that's why we had earlier, we had whom come up. So case is very important for pronouns. Okay, who is nominative, whose is possessive, whom is objective. Whose never gives you a problem in English unless you confuse it with whose, as in who is, the contraction who is. But remember where you met whose before? It is an adjective question. So when whose is a relative pronoun, hang it on a slanted line and put the noun it modifies above it. Thus, let's look at this sentence. The boy whose bike was stolen cried. Pay close attention to this sentence. Do your steps. Identify the main clause. The boy, well, let's use the same color we used earlier. The boy whose bike was stolen cried. Okay, what is the boy doing? The boy cried. Okay. Then we have the relative pronoun whose, and then the adjective clause, whose bike was stolen. What's the subject of the relative clause? Pay close attention. What was stolen? The bike. So that's the subject. The main verb was stolen. Main verb and helping verb was stolen. So what's who's doing? Well, it's modifying bike. It's an adjective. So how are we going to diagram it? Well, let's look at it. You diagram the main clause first, just like you normally would. The boy cried. That's the first thing we do. And then we do the adjective clause. So the boy cried. And then we have the adjective clause. We put the subject, the bike, was stolen, helping verb, main verb. And then whose is modifying bike. So the dotted line is actually going down and meeting, you can have it kind of go under and touch whose, but it's going under there. It's meeting whose, it's not meeting bike. Okay, the way she's drawn it there makes it a little unclear, but it should be a dotted line that goes under, you can maybe do it like this, something like that. So it reaches whose. Remember, we have to diagram the relative pronouns according to their role in the adjective clause. Whose was an adjective, so we modify it like an adjective, modifying bike. It's still beginning the adjective clause, right? If we go back, the boy whose bike was stolen cried. We could still identify the adjective clause by looking at whose, the relative pronoun first, whose bike was stolen, right? It's still at the beginning, but when we diagram it, we're going to diagram it like we normally would, which is like this. So whose is easy. Who and whom are somewhat troublesome because just in normal English practice, like on the streets, if we're talking to people, a lot of people make mistakes when they use them. It's a very common mistake because many people don't study grammar anymore. So while whose is easily taken care of, who and whom are a constant source of irritation. Now that you understand subjects and objects and predicate nominatives, you could always figure out the correct case. So it's always difficult for those people who haven't studied what you have studied. Now that you understand this, it's going to be very easy to pick up with a few exercises. When who and whom are used in main clauses, just see what jobs they are doing, right? So remember I mentioned, if you identify the relative pronoun, you'll be able to identify the adjective clause. But sometimes these pronouns, which are relative pronouns, are not being used in the beginning of adjective clauses. Okay, so like I said, 90% of the time. But when who and whom are used in main clauses, just see, right, in main clauses, just see what jobs they are doing. They are just pronouns, not relative pronouns in main clauses. Okay, so same word can take different roles. Okay, we've seen this before. So let's look at these. Who goes there? Now, who goes there? You don't have to rearrange it. Who is the subject? And so it's the subject, so it's in the nominative case. Who goes there? The verb is go. There's an adverb. Who is the subject? So that's why it's who. It's in the nominative case, it's a subject. Anything in the that's a subject or a predicate nominative, that's why we call it a predicate nominative, is in the nominative case. Whom did you see? All right, where's the subject here? You did see. So did see is the main verb. Whom? What is whom? It's a direct object. You did see whom, right? See when you rearrange it. So it's a direct object, so it's in the objective case, obviously. It's a direct object. Whom did he ask about? Whom again? Why? It's an object. Object of what? About whom? He did ask about whom. It's an object of a preposition. So it's in the objective case. This is who. This is our subject. Is our verb. Who is our predicate nominative. Oops, let me keep it the same color. Predicate nominative, and so it is nominative case, right? So those are these pronouns, who and whom, when they are in main clauses. So that, think about some sentences maybe to practice. Just practice making up some sentences using who and whom. Make sure that you have whom as an objective in the objective case. Make sure it's the object of preposition, indirect object, or direct object, and that who is the subject or predicate nominative. Now it gets a little trickier, because now we're putting them in as relative pronouns in adjective clauses. When who or whom is a relative pronoun, its case depends on its use in its own clause, in the adjective clause that it's in. Its own clause means the adjective clause that it's in. So you can even add this to your book. That it's in. I know the man who yelled. All right. So if we look at this, what's our subject? What's our verb? What is our main subject and verb? I know the man who yelled. I know the man who yelled. I know the man. That's our main clause. And so we're going to diagram it. I know the man. We drop the line down to who, okay? And who is referring to, what is it referring to? It's referring to man, right? Who yelled. So I drop the line down, I put who. Now look, in that adjective clause, who is what? Who is the subject? Who yelled? And so who is a nominative case because it's a subject. Yelled is its verb. Who is the subject of its own clause, so it is nominative, even though it refers to an object. Okay, so if you look, what does who refer to? It refers to man. But man was here. And it's a direct object, which means man, even though it doesn't show it, man is technically in the objective case. It just doesn't show that it's in the objective case, like who does. So even though who refers back to an object, it still is nominative because it is a subject in its own clause, in the adjective clause. You have to look at its role in the adjective clause. Now, I mentioned that man is also in the objective case, and this is just a little side note to keep in mind. If I were to ask you, what case is I in? You'd say, well, you could either recognize it, oh, well, that's the form I, it's nominative. I know that's the form. But you can also look at it like this. Well, I is a subject. If a subject is always in the nominative case, so I is subject. This is important because not all words change. So I could put, I don't know, Jack knew the man. Jack is a subject. If it's a subject, what case is it? Nominative. Right? And not case here is only for nouns and pronouns. So I knew the man. The man is what case? The man. It has to be objective because it's an object. It's a direct object. So man is in the objective case, but it doesn't show that it's in the objective case. So that's the difference between our pronouns and the rest of the nouns. The pronouns, most of them, show what case they're in. And if you're studying an inflected language, a language that has case, like Latin, Greek, Arabic, etc., all of the words are going to change. Right? Even the verbs have case. The pronouns have case. They have gender and all these other things that are going to, it gets a lot more complicated in these languages. So English is easier in this respect than those languages. Now let's look at a slightly different sentence, going back to this. I know the man who yelled. A man whom I knew yelled. Where is the independent clause? A man yelled. A man yelled. Now, whom I knew. Where's the subject of that? Well, I. Knew is the verb. I knew. And then whom is our direct object. Right? And that's why whom is in the objective case. So look how we diagram this sentence. A man yelled. I is our subject. Oops. In red here. Knew is the verb. Whom is the direct object. But whom is still referring back to man. Right? Man and whom, replace the two. A man. Okay, what is whom referring to? I knew a man, right? I knew a man. So whom and man, whom is going back to man. Man is in the nominative case because it's the subject. Whom is in the objective case because it is a direct object in its own clause, in the adjective clause. It's very important to distinguish between the two. Whom is a direct object of knew in its own clause, so it is objective even though it refers to a subject. Okay, so remember that principle. Now you can amaze your friends or if someone randomly on the street asks you with your certainty about who and whom. Okay, and one more quick note about this, and then we'll have an exercise. It says the who family, who, whose, and whom refer to people. So this is important. Who family, who, whose, and whom refers to people. Which refers to things. That refers to people or things. The person that took my book is now in the classroom. The person who took my book is now in the classroom. The book that was taken is in the classroom. The book which was taken is in the classroom, right? So that refers to people and things, which refers to things, who refers to people. So pretty simple, right? Who stands alone. You can make a Venn diagram of this. In fact, we can do it very simply here. So you have people on the one hand, and then you have things on the other. Are people now? Someone could get smart and say, "Well, aren't people things?" Yeah, people are things, but we're distinguishing between people and these and any other thing. Okay, so people and non-people. So which who is going to refer to people. Which is only going to refer to things. You don't say the person which found my pencil or whatever. Who is people, which is things. That can go to both. Can refer to people and things. So that's an easy way to think about this and to memorize it. Always, if you can, memorize, but you then have to apply that memorization to exercises in order to understand it. You don't just want to be someone that has memorized a bunch of things but doesn't understand it. You want to be someone who has memorized a bunch of things, understands it, and can use it, right? It's the difference between someone who's knowledgeable and a donkey carrying a bunch of books. The donkey holds a bunch of books, but he doesn't know about what's in them. And the person who's knowledgeable has a bunch of books memorized, known in his mind, and can use them. Okay, so memorize and know how to use it. So we'll now have a video on exercise 4.6, and there's going to be adjective clauses are a bit, they take a bit of time. Okay, we're going to go over when we don't actually see the relative pronoun, and we have missing relative pronouns, and then a few more exercises as well, and then something which is a little difficult, restrictive and non-restrictive clauses, or essential and non-essential clauses, which will, if you understand those, you will never make any comma mistakes. And then finally, we'll get to noun clauses.